It had to be done. We have to get to the scary, risky part of Web3. So welcome, my friend. Thank you for joining me in this next video, where we're going to talk about the bad, the good, the ugly, not necessarily in that order. But Web3 has gotten a really, really bad rap right from the get. And I probably started because government, in its, let's say, mistrust of a new technology that can potentially operate outside of its regulations and ability to control our financial situations, was pretty anti-cryptocurrencies. Now, to put it in perspective, for the United States economy, less than 3% of crypto transactions have been attributed to criminal activity, whereas upwards of 18% of the fiat currency has been attributed to criminal transactions. So with that being said, there are nefarious players in all games, and any new technology, and certainly any disruptor, anybody that is creating an alternative to the existing system and a way for people to be able to engage and exchange without government control, can often be described as a threat. Now, does that make it a threat? Absolutely not. And so what we're going to talk about today are some of the very well-known risks and threats that can happen on Web3. We're also going to talk about some ways that you can overcome them and some of the more typical challenges that most average people and businesses experience in onboarding to Web3. I consider all of these to be risks because if you're not using it, that's a problem. And the reason that you're not using it is the perceived problems. So let's get into it. Hopefully we can make this as interesting and as exciting as possible. I'll start with a sad story from a very close friend, the CFO in our DAO, who was scammed on Web3. Now, this is someone who is incredibly experienced, who has tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of transactions under their belt when it comes to Web3, and yet they still got scammed. What happened? So just like with your email, just like anywhere on the internet, again, there are nefarious players. And if they send you a link, if they ask for your private data, if they get you to exchange value with them, that can happen in a way that exposes you to extreme fraudulent exchanges. I mean, I would be very surprised if you've never experienced fraudulent use of your credit card or fraudulent use of some of your data, if you've never gotten an email that felt a little fishy, let alone was actually phishing, and you got a virus on your computer. These are the realities of the internet, of the World Wide Web. And there are all sorts of different technologies and people that are trying to take advantage of the fact that we now have access to each other in a way that we've never had before. Web3 augments this because for the first time ever, we are in charge. We are custodians of our value, of our data. And that can expose us to a new set of risks we have not yet experienced, and we don't necessarily have the security or the regulation or the protections for. Now, oddly or paradoxically, this is also the advantage of Web3, because no longer am I putting my value and my data into your hands and just hoping that you're taking care of it and custodying it in a manner that I agree with and feel safe with. But I have no idea what securities and protections you have in place to then keep me safe because I've now engaged with you. So this is my personal belief that the number one risk and challenge with Web3 is that we need to be responsible for our behavior and our value online in a way that we just have never had to before. It would be like carrying all of the money you've ever owned and ever earned in your wallet all of the time. Now, most of us wouldn't feel very comfortable with that concept. In the same sense with, you might not wear all of your fanciest jewelry or all of your fanciest clothes when you're walking around in a place that doesn't necessarily feel secure to you. So that can absolutely happen online and in Web3. Of course, we are working on all sorts of different ways to be super secure and safe. But I think the part that we're going to get into step by step is just be aware that you're in charge. Go slow. If an error or a dialogue message pops up, take the time to read it and research it, especially in different communities. I've posted many a message that I've gotten in and on Discord and said, hey, is this from an admin? Is this from a moderator? Is this from somebody involved in the community? And it turns out that that particular scam has been played out multiple times in the server. And so by just taking that extra step to investigate, hey, this is unfamiliar. Is this part of the protocol? Is this part of the system? Is this safe? Those scams get found out very, very quickly because the more experienced users are bringing them to attention as soon as they happen, right? So what I will say is that anytime you're doing something new, of course it's going to be risky. There's a lot to learn. And with Web3 and with technology in general, it can feel inaccessible and problematic and therefore very risky because we're not the builders of that tech. But again, you use your credit card all of the time. You buy tickets to shows on platforms you may or may not be familiar with. You are transacting in a way that exposes you to risk. And yet, because it feels like a technology that is more widely used, you just innately engage with it and therefore trust it without really reading the fine print. Again, how many times have you read that terms and conditions? So what happened with the CFO in our DAO is that he was selling secondary NFTs in a marketplace and signed up to use a service that would allow for any NFT he was selling to be put on any NFT marketplace. It was acting like a DApp, a decentralized application, a piece of software that would give him a solution that would help him sell some of the assets, the NFTs that he no longer wanted. But what he gave away was permission for this software to access all of his NFTs and sell them essentially to the creator of this particular software. And it was a scam. And very quickly, he watched all of his NFTs get taken from his wallet and sent elsewhere. However, based on his experience and based on the communities within which he is operating in, he was able to see every single asset that was removed from his wallet, where it was sent, find the original holder of that custodial wallet, where those assets were sent, and retrieve them. That is the most amazing part of Web3. And because it is totally transparent and it's non-reversible. However, if you program that smart contract, that NFT, to say this is non-transferable, which you can do as one of the original creators of that NFT or holders of that NFT, you can alter the contract, you can alter the software, again, kind of depending on the origin, but that's a different story. But so he was able to find all of these different assets and connect with the asset holder and negotiate their return. So this was a huge learning opportunity for him. And quite honestly, he was shocked and disappointed that someone as experienced as him had made that kind of a mistake, because it is a very, very easy, obvious, and mistake we see happen all the time. So now I know you're asking yourself, well, how do I avoid those mistakes? Go slow. Don't give any site or any application or any messenger or anyone permission to access what's in your wallet without knowing that it is reputable. It is the access point that you're agreeing to. And now there's new dApps that are actually providing security so that they will help you with that process. There are so many different solutions being created on Web3 every single day. And you are able to operate in a manner that is safe and secure if you go slow, if you take it one step at a time and you verify every transaction. It's new. We're used to just clicking through and clicking on links and going to wherever we want and feeling safe. Ultimately, what we were doing with that level of accessibility and convenience was giving away all of our power. We were giving away all of our privacy. Our data, our images, our personal conversations, all of that is now being used for who knows what. If you're willing to exchange convenience for complete control and being completely brainwashed, I guess, by the system, like, go for it. It is super convenient. And sure, there might be insurances or securities or regulations that protect you, but I think we're seeing a lot of that unravel, and that's in developed economies. In developing economies, those securities and regulations have yet to be consistently put into place in a manner that actually protects the people. So Web3 is the first technology that we've really seen that is attempting to create that security and that transparency and that verification for the people. And yes, it's going to be a learning curve. So end rant, let's get into some of the very specific issues and challenges and risks that people have experienced and how you can overcome them, not just in your using of Web3, but also in your business. Woo! Okay, so first and foremost, when we're talking about Web3, oftentimes we're talking about smart contracts. So we're talking about these automated, executable software exchanges that are triggered from a start point and take you to an end point. Now, obviously, any contract, any piece of software can have bugs. Whether it's a digital currency or an NFT or a Web3 dApp, we see bugs and problems. And what can happen is that people automate these things, hit verify and go. And we don't really know the bugs or the complexities until that system really starts iterating and verifying and building. So kind of like anything else you're just beginning or starting, make sure you're testing it. Make sure you have support on staff so that you can iron out the wrinkles as they pop up. This is new technology. And when you're creating something new in your business and you're working with new people and you're providing new solutions, what I would suggest is manage expectations. Know that this is not going to be a completely smooth process. There are going to be things we cannot predict that come up. And that's where you're seeing a lot of the debate in the NFT and Web3 worlds right now, as these are problems that just didn't exist before. And so on the one hand, that's really exciting and really amazing and a huge opportunity for growth and success. But on the other, it can be really frustrating as the user if you exchange value and it takes an extra 15 minutes, or you send something to the wrong wallet address. These are the kind of hiccups that we can't necessarily predict. But when we are aware that we need to create multiple test case scenarios, that we need to let this thing incubate, that we're beta testing, that we're doing a closed door launch, that's what can kind of help us mitigate the risks of a bug in our smart contract. So secondly is the crypto wallet security. And this is what my CFO experienced. There are a couple very rudimentary steps you can take to make sure that what is in your wallet is very safe. Like we've already discussed, don't give anything or anyone access. Secondly, as you set up your wallet, there are going to be multiple options for you to create additional layers of security, such as a seed phrase, such as two-factor authentication, such as KYC, so on and so forth. Now, with each one of these steps, you're in charge. Some of the early days, biggest snafus that occurred in Web3 is that people lost access to their wallets, and therefore they lost access to everything in their wallets. There's tens of millions of Bitcoins or value in Bitcoins floating around in dumpsters because a cold storage wallet got thrown out. We're sitting around with, a seed phrase that had gotten lost. These are the types of extra steps that you need to take in order to make sure you're safe. Now, have I memorized my seed phrases? Absolutely not. That's insane. Some people will say the only way to stay safe is if you memorize it. Now, there are a lot of different security protocols that you can take. It kind of depends on how paranoid you are. And I say that only because I'm not that paranoid. So I'm not taking these, I'm not writing seed phrases down and putting them in 3 different vaults and sending it to, some foreign entity overseas so that in case of disaster, I don't lose them, right? But what I am doing is diversifying my assets. So I don't keep everything in one wallet. I don't keep everything in one cold storage device. I spread it out so that if something happens to one or I lose the access to another, I'm safe. So I think diversification is probably a very basic way of mitigating risk in terms of accessing your wallet. Something else that happens is that the technology evolves. So just like every piece of hardware and every piece of software that you've ever used, it needs updating, right? It needs firmware updating. And what sometimes happens is because we're approaching Web3 the way that we've engaged with Web2, which is kind of set it and forget it, right? Like the man or big brother will take care of me and let me know when I need to do something, or insure me if something happens, or answer my phone call if I have a customer support question. That's just not always going to be available to you for Web3. And we need to take responsibility for that which we have and that which we engage with on Web3. And so by diversifying, by safeguarding your Web3 tools in a manner that supports you, you're going to set yourself up for success. So just make sure that you're not putting yourself under unrealistic expectations, like memorizing a 24 keyword phrase that is the only way you can unlock potentially where a significant amount of value is being stored. Know the difference between centralized and decentralized platforms. And really that's only going to be available by doing your own research. You'll hear that a lot in this ecosystem, DYOR. Look at the white paper, look at any audits that are available. But most platforms are pretty transparent around their utilization of decentralized or centralized networks. And so if you're storing your value on a centralized network, you're essentially acting like Web 2. You're allowing a central party to be the custodian of your value. Decentralized simply means that there are, again, multiple nodes, multiple spaces on this network where value can be stored. Potentially, you're the custodian of your own value, and you're accessing a platform that has multiple access points, multiple stores of information, so that it can neither be controlled nor monitored in the same way that a centralized platform can. People will argue with you what's right or wrong, what's better or worse. It's ultimately going to come up to you, what makes you feel secure, the way that you like to transact, and the way that you want to engage with these platforms moving forward. I use both, and there are different reasons for that. So as you get into this ecosystem and as you start transacting and as you start building this technology into your life and into your business, you're going to see the conveniences and the costs of some platforms and then the risks and benefits of others. And that is a very personal choice that you get to make. Okay, so personal preferences aside, always make sure that you're using reputable platforms. You verify that the platform is correct. You didn't just type in the URL and hope that you spelled it right. You know, some of these Web3 technologies can have like kind of convoluted names. They're using different proprietary ways of addressing themselves online. And so it's just, again, it's a new technology. Make sure you're taking the precautions to be engaging on authenticated platforms. Use very, very strong passwords. Do not use the same password everywhere. I hope you've all learned that lesson. Verify these transactions, verify these smart contracts. Watch some videos, watch some how-tos, see how people are engaging, get used to the dialogues that pop up. Never, ever send a huge amount of value for the first time to a new address without testing it at first. There's so many different platforms available that will help you engage on Web3 safely, securely, and protected. And I haven't used them all, so I'm not going to recommend them here, but feel free to get into my Discord container to reach out to me, hello@NicoleBZ.com, to get on YouTube, check out Whiteboard Crypto, Coin Bureau, Altcoin Daily. Those are some of my most favorite resources where I have learned so much of what I'm sharing with you today. And get into some very supportive and helpful Discord containers. City Roots DAO is a great place to start. So lastly, how can you overcome some of these barriers, some of these risks as a business owner, or potentially as someone who's just trying to transact with business? You knew I was gonna say this and you're doing it right now. So you're already well ahead of the game. Educate yourself, gain some experience. Again, there's platforms out there that will literally teach you how to use Web3 and reward you for doing so. It's gonna take a little bit of time. It's gonna take a willingness and an openness, that growth mindset to say, yes, I'm saying yes to success, I'm saying yes to the future, and I'm willing to learn. Collaborate with Web3 experts. I guarantee you there's somebody that inspires you, that you trust, that is already in your ecosystem that is playing with Web3. You can create some really unique partnerships and some really amazing opportunities to leverage your success and their success to create something that benefits both of you. There's an example of a hotel in Paris that the hotel industry really struggles to reduce its use of plastic. And this particular hotel owner and their marketing team wanted to do their best to be as environmentally responsible as possible, but realizing like as a hotel, it's very difficult, especially in this climate. A lot of plastic is used just to disinfect things and keep things safe and protected, right? So what they did was they found a charitable organization in South America, in the Amazon, that cleans up plastic in the environment. And they created this series of NFTs, which was essentially just renting a hotel for a night. Now, the way that the smart contract worked is that they were able to delegate a component of every single room rented and send it directly to that charity. That was completely transparent. Everybody could see that happening. They could count it in real time. And so then you, as somebody staying in the hotel, could purposefully pick one of these rooms to make sure that your environmental impact was being mitigated. Now, this was an idea. The hotel knew that they wanted to mitigate their environmental impact. They wanted to be responsible global citizens, according to this hotel, right? And they knew that there was this charity, or there were many charities that they could partner with, but where do you go from there? Well, they teamed up with a NFT smart contract developer that had done this before. And they found that person because there were other instances of different businesses partnering with charities so that they could create this transparent reward that everybody benefits from: the purchaser, the business, and the charity, right? And so by getting curious, by asking questions, by discovering who's doing what, you'll be able to find some really amazing partners that you can build with. City Roots DAO partnered with 5 nations in Canada, which is an Indigenous gathering of leaders in the Indigenous communities, because oftentimes artists, let alone Native artists, can feel very disenfranchised and very marginalized by new technologies. They knew they wanted to create something that allowed the elders and these ancient wisdom keepers to benefit from this new technology. So working with City Roots DAO, an NFT series was created based on the art that some of these elders had been for generations putting out there. And we're able to create a way of monetizing and benefiting these communities that felt very much in alignment with everybody's values and ethics. So there's all sorts of really cool projects going on out there, and all you need to do is get curious, look for partners, look for people with experience, ask questions, get on Twitter, DM people, get into different Discord communities, Telegram channels, and WhatsApp chats. I promise you someone out there has already asked this question. The last thing that I think people are really struggling with is this concept of regulatory clarity and security, in the sense that for business, especially depending on where you're operating, there's often a lot of government control. And with Web3, we have yet to have seen that. Again, that's going to change very rapidly. It'll be really interesting when you're watching this to see what has developed. But it is kind of the wild, wild west, which means you can create anything you want. And also we have no idea what the implications of that may be. So there might be some new challenges that arise simply because your industry association, the regulatory bodies within which you've been working or using to certify or to approve some of your products and ways of working with your people just haven't yet been applied to Web3. So I'm thinking medical industries, I'm thinking food products, I'm thinking some service providers. There's ways that we've been entrenched in working because it's safe, but no one's paying attention to that on Web3. And so for a lot of businesses, this can feel really risky. What I will say is, in order to overcome that, do what feels right for you. Do what feels safe and is in the best interest of your customers, clients, buyers, patients, and give them the power to choose. That is the real truest benefit of Web3, is everybody gets to engage in a manner that feels like it is secure and transparent and accountable and trustworthy. So if you as a business are allowing your people to experience those values, the regulations or the securities that you've become so used to will be honored intrinsically by the way that you're doing business. So we got the tough part over. Thank you for being with me. Next, we are going to just simply talk about the different benefits, the rewards, the really, really fun part of Web3, how you can gamify and how you can lead people towards your experience so that everybody can win.